Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. Welcome to day 2 of our Instagram Live on Let's Talk Extra Seats for Women. It's really, really great to be here with you today. Welcome, everybody. My name is Abosede Jojogan, and I'm the founder of Women in Leadership Advancement Network, WILAN. It's really exciting to be here on day 2 of our 5-part series talking about extra seats for women. How's everyone doing? I hope you had a lovely day. Welcome to everyone who's just joining us. Welcome to day 2 of our 5-part series on Let's Talk Extra Seats for Women. Yesterday, we had with us Nkiru Uzodi. Nkiru is a program manager at the Policy, Legal and Advocacy Center, PLAC. And it was a very, very exciting conversation. And, just before our guest for today joins us and I introduce her, let me just run through 5 things. So 5 things we learned from our session with Nkiru yesterday. So yesterday we learned 5 key things. We learned that the National Assembly is responsible for the policies, the laws, and allocation of the public funds, which affect our daily lives. So, I think we started off that conversation with, why should we care? Why is it important to us to be having this conversation? Welcome, Adaora. I see you, and I'll be bringing you on shortly. But we're just going through 5 things we learned from our conversation with Nkiru yesterday. So the first one was, obviously, the National Assembly is responsible for the legislation, the policies, and also the allocation of public funds. So we should care who is seated in the National Assembly and if they represent us. Point 2, with only a few women in the National Assembly, unfortunately, the laws and the policies that we get will not be inclusive, right? So that's the second lesson that we learned. The third lesson was that Nigeria, sadly, ranks 184 out of 187 countries in the International Parliamentary Union. Adaora, I'm going to bring you on while I just run. Really excited about this conversation this evening. And I think the fourth lesson is that there are actually cost implications, both economically. Welcome, Adaora. I'm going to introduce you shortly. Welcome.
Hi. How you doing?
So I'm just running through some of the lessons that we learned yesterday. So I'm going to dive in. All right. So the fourth lesson is that there are actually serious implications, cost implications, economic, social, and monetary cost implications, all right, for not having women in leadership positions. And finally,
absolutely,
given that Nigeria's system of government, which is a first past the post system, the reserved seat is our best bet if we're going to increase women's representation at the parliament. So these are some of the key lessons that we got out of the session yesterday. But I'm excited to welcome our guest today. So this is day 2 of our 5 series where we're talking extra seats for women. And today we have with us Adaora Onyechere. Adaora wears many hats.
I laugh when you say that.
Honestly, but for the purpose of this conversation, Adaora leads the gender desk, head of women affairs and gender foster committee at the African Union and Ecosocc Nigeria. In addition to that, very interestingly, Adaora is also the technical advisor on gender, strategic programs and communications to the Right Honorable Nkiru Onyechere who is actually the
This is work for
main
me.
sponsor. Adaora, I think you're back with us now. We lost you, I think, for a second there, but you're back. Do you hear me okay? Okay, so while Adaora sorts out her network, just let me know if you can hear me, but I'm sure that the network will balance out shortly. So Adaora also is technical advisor to the Deputy Chief Whip, the Right Honorable Onyechere Adaora, who is the main sponsor of the bill, alongside the Speaker and over 85 members of the House. So we're really excited to be having this conversation. Okay, I can see that we lost Adaora, but I'm sure she will join us back. Welcome to everyone who's just joining us. We're excited to have you with us. This is day 2 of our 5-part series. Please let me know that you hear me okay, and that you can see me, and everything's all good on this side. We're getting Adaora back. Great. Okay, fantastic. Okay, I've gotten confirmation that you hear me okay. All right, Adaora, I hope you can join. Okay, awesome. Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? Adaora, I see you. Do you hear me okay? Hi, Adaora. Do you hear me okay? I see you. Okay, you hear me. All good. Awesome. Thank you so much to those who are, I think, Adaora, do you hear me okay? Hearing, okay, you hear me loud and clear. So, Adaora, I think
Yes, I do.
your,
Yes.
okay, great. Fantastic. Okay, I was just introducing you there, but we're really excited to have you here. And, I
Thank
was
you,
just saying, technical advisor to the Deputy Chief Whip, who is a major sponsor of this bill. So it's really exciting to have you today. So yesterday, Adaora, Nkiru helped us to lay a solid foundation in understanding why the reserved seats bill is the best option for us as a nation. Us down memory, down history, to understand that, look, there have been that have been made for measures. However, this never been a time like this where we're this close to actually achieving, an increase in representation, at least at the legislative, both in the federal and at the state level.
Yeah.
My first question to you, Adaora, is because, like I said, you wear many hats. I mean, you are an aspirant as well. What does this bill mean to you? Like, what are the layers? What does it mean to you and for the women in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much, Abosade. I think, first of all, I like to say that every woman is an aspirant of some sort, in the social space. Because one, we are in a space where we are earnestly looking to reduce the gaps that limit women, either in governance or in politics or in leadership. And several people would prefer to be relative about the spaces that mean within their immediate comfort, what it means to them. So some people would say, what I want the spaces that are so huge in politics to be shrunk. We want to limit that space in political participation for women because we want more girls, we want more young women in the political space. Some people will tell you it is breaking the glass ceiling and having more women at the helms of affairs, becoming chairmen and CEOs and heads of boards. Some people will tell you that it is also being part of the policy making, platforms of institutions to be able to, bring on board pro-gender policies that enable the thriving space for women. So we are all aspiring in our different spaces in one way or the other. But when we come back, to the real conversation and the nomenclature where we are talking about elective positions for women, we're talking about, politics, and especially in the space where we are looking at the limited spaces for women from the parliament, from the state assemblies. I mean, Abosede, you of course, there are some state assemblies, I think over 13 or so, that do not even have women at their state assemblies, not one woman. And so you want to ask the question, what was the conversation on gender that they have? What is the bills that they propose? How does it affect the larger female, community in their local environs? Because when you're talking about the status, they are the closest space to the common person, to the common man, to the young woman in the local government. That's the smallest, that's the closest they can get. Now, I can tell you that, I had a class today with Partners for West Africa, Nigeria, where I was talking to some girls, some young mentees. And one of the things that did come out clearly was the fact that I had to be deliberate about asking questions on, what does the special seat mean to you? Who here is supporting the special seat? And I can tell you categorically that some of the young girls said they were not for it. And reasons were for them that they felt it limited women's competitive skills, that they felt, with the extra seats, bill, it looked like tokenism. It meant that, that those people who have been running since, what happens to those people who have been struggling? What happens to those people who have been running? This is their sixth time of running election. They're from nowhere. You just do extra seat bill and you pass it. And somebody who just came yesterday that does not even understand party politics, no structure, just comes in and says, I want to run. And you give the person space. And you say, he said that they should go and compete. They should go and compete. The arguments are so sentimental that it's unbelievable. And I can understand. However, we have to look at the practicality of our time. Let's look at this is an emergency we are talking about. We're talking about a state of affairs where if we don't do anything deliberate, the spaces will even shrink more. And more women who were even motivated before now will be demotivated because the spaces become more aggressive. Women are no longer willing to come out. There is even voter apathy because they will say, well, after all, we are not being voted for, let's not vote. And so you have a hybrid of challenges that come from non-participation of women's, in elections and in politics, and non-availability of the voices in quorum at the National Assembly, State Assembly, and at the Senate. So for me, I think it is a new dawn. I think I think for me, I have a modicum of courage that something spectacular is about to happen in the history of women. Our suffragette system has changed into a new dimension where women are no longer will be voting, but actually that their votes will count for women. Because in that space, you're saying this seat is reserved for women. It's a temporary measure. It's a temporary special measure that will only run for election cycle, for God's sake. It's not that hard. Before you know it, for Christmases, for celebrations, for Easters, it's gone. And then you review and say, okay, perhaps we have more women now. We have at least 50%, 45%, and then we can leverage on that and see, okay, perhaps we'll build more. Let's rest the bill a bit. Let's rest it. Now we have more women. However, if we do not become deliberate, let me tell you what happens. I gave an example today and I said, let's divide this class into two. Okay, you're talking about 4% of women in the National Assembly. Let's say, okay, in 300 something members, you have only 13 people. And then one woman brings up a bill and says all girls must attain education till the level of secondary school. And, she lobbies her fellow females and she lobbies the men. Obviously, that happens often. But when you now come to voting at the plenary, and they say all in favor, say aye. The 13 women will raise their hands. And then all not in favor, say no. All the men, you say no. You can even hear the voice of the men. Well, I live in Abuja. We hear it in Wuse too from Metama. Do you understand? So what am I saying? We need the numbers. I beg your pardon. We need the numbers. We need the numbers. It's not an argument.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Adaora. And what I really like about, the way that you've sort of taken that conversation is, yesterday we tried to really lay a foundation for people to understand. I think that one of the things, like you said, is, and with good reason, the sentimental nature of how we approach issues. But one of the things that was highlighted yesterday is how women's movement and the people who have been on this journey cannot believe that they are at this precipice, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Impact
This is
their
an
life.
epoch-making moment. Absolutely.
You know, and that's why for me, this conversation is so important. I wish there were more people, but I know that other people will, you know, the replay, because we are talking. I mean, if we miss this, Adaora, we're talking another 4 years at the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And we,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I agree with you when you say this is an emergency. You know, we're talking about our country having high levels of insecurity, poverty, and political apathy. So we're in crisis, right? And inclusive governance is the way out, right? Because if the people who are representing us, like you said, who's gonna talk about these issues, right? So I really appreciate you bringing it down to, because that's why we're having this conversation. You know, no matter how few the people are who hear this conversation, they go back, they are more enlightened, they
Mm-hmm.
understand, and
Mm-hmm.
then they cannot other people on
Mm-hmm.
why this is important. And like you said, there is a sunset clause, right? So 16 years, and we don't know where we'll find ourselves then. And it's like, oh, great, thank you very much. Now, let's move on. So, what are some of the barriers, right? So, what does it look like if we didn't have the reserved seat bill? Because you who actually believe that if we leave things to chance, that we actually will retrogress from the current numbers, right? So I think that my question is, you know, what is the risk of not passing this bill? Adaora, did you hear that?
Please, can you go again?
Yes. So I said, what is the risk of not passing this bill? So I'm one of those people who believe that if we leave things to chance, all right, we will actually numbers. You see.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm just saying, what is the cost? And I can see that Zainab has put a comment. She says, women are so afraid of tokenism. It is astounding. We should take whatever we can get at this point. And I mean, that's the point that you made earlier. Now, people are calling this, but I mean, I beg to, but I know that understanding the issues and, you know, understanding how far we have come. But I guess my question to you is, what do we risk if this bill is not passed, Adaora?
You see, when people say it's tokenism, we have been given tokens, we have been receiving it. I mean, that's what we've been given.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You walk into a space and you say women are not allowed to inherit land. Women are not allowed to, you know, have inheritance. You talk about, you know, why a girl should not be allowed to marry as a child, and you are negotiating, you know, the pubic sense of a child. You're going into a space and you're asking why it is important for a girl to go to school. You know, these are some of the mindsets. I think, like I said earlier today at a different engagement, we have been stereotyped right from origin. And so our space has been limited by the patriarchal nature of our society in such a way that even now, to demobilize that sense of thinking is going to take a lot of advocacy, a lot of awareness for us to uncover. But in the process of uncovering, we need solutions that are policy oriented and justiciable, that are laws that can create a platform where people can leverage on those laws and say, yes, this is justiciable. These people can actually, you know, face some sort of, you know, considerations. I mean, there is a level of punitive measures that come with that sort of check. Without that, we will keep driving these conversations in the 360-degree angle. Because what we will get is we will keep having these conversations. Every year you will call and you will do Instagram live, we will wail, we will groan, we will cry, and then we will also pray there's a sunset time where we can pass the law, and then we keep recycling. So it is not just about the emergency, it's about the deliberateness to harmonize. Because over the years, women have continued to take a step further. This year, they take a step further. This year, they take a step further. But what are the conversations and what is the output? And this is where we find, for the first time, voices uniting on a document on this bill to say, you know what? If you don't want to give us the Gender Equal and Opportunities Bill, which we know was stepped down at the Senate, by the way, if you don't want to consider 35% affirmative action for women, okay, on this one, we die here. All right? Together, united, we speak and say the extra seat bill has come to stay. And so there has to be intentionality. People are lobbying. People are uniting. Civil society spaces, women groups, young women politicians, people who are influencers are coming together and saying, you know what? It's about the next generation of girls. It's not just about the politics of today. Because if we do not increase the space, there is a danger and a death of deliberate participation of women in politics. There is a danger in the men shrinking the spaces even smaller. And so you find it difficult to even rally around, not talk more of when you are inside. So what this bill does is it demystifies political participation for women. It opens up the space. It allows women to thrive. And, you know, I said today to the young women, I said, you might think, oh, it's about more women in the political space running for elections. You will compete amongst the best of you. Even if the bill passes, it's not a walk in the park. It is women with capacities that would also run in that space. So if there are 10 active political parties who bring 10 fantastic women in politics who want to run, you will slug it out at the polls. It's even more competitive than just competing against, because women come with fierceness, they come with passion. So you must be able to bring your A game to the game. So honestly, it is not tokenism at all. In fact, it is more deliberate responsibility to the women. And so you're talking about 108 seats with 111 seats, 219 seats in total. I mean, that just shows that what we are saying is by the time you multiply that by 4 years, we would have had more women in that space. We would have had more women at the State Assembly to look at issues, and it will increase gender budgeting. This brings in the gender budgeting issue. If we had more women at the parliament, the budget for gender and issues that are curated under gender would have more budget. I mean, how can we have 460 million for women in agriculture in the whole of the budget for the whole of the country? To empower
Adaora,
women beyond the nomenclature, the conversations, the semantics. Yes, I hear you. So I think the most important thing for us right now is to remove the sentimentality attached to the argument and say what's practical and what's practicable. And that idea is to say, you know what, enough is enough. If we want to end domestic violence against the girl child, is the harbinger is in the law. If you want to end lack of financial inclusion for women, it's in the law. If you want to end, you know, reduce lack of education for young girls, it's in the law. And those laws are the proponents of people who are in the parliament. So if you don't have voices, you don't have a quorum. And that's what we must understand. Elections and politics decide the policies. Without the politics, the policies are not sustainable. So those who sustain them needs to be people who are engaged in the politicking. And the voices at the parliament are the biggest political narratives, the narrators of the future of our election. So we must get women into that space. Rwanda had a quota system, Namibia, South Africa, Senegal. The countries in Africa and West Africa are endless, to say but the least. And Nigeria is what? The giant of Africa. And we have one of the largest population of women in the whole African continent. And you're telling us that, in fact, I was in anguish yesterday when I was talking to somebody really high up in power, and we're having this conversation, and he said, oh, Adaora, people should calm down. It will get to you people's turn. Women will come to power. And this is somebody who is in authority. And so I'm telling you that if we are not deliberate, we will not have an inroad.
It's not going to happen.
Even the international international and development partners will not help us. You know, the conversations they are saying is that, see these governments, see these people, are they serious about gender mainstreaming? They are laughing at us. They are sitting one side and say, you guys can have all the workshops. If you do not have political will, you cannot get this thing done. You cannot.
Wow. You know, thank you so much. You're really, really coming to this at, you know, people really need to feel this urgency, right? And you're lighting us up with that fire because, you know, it's not just another day. And I feel like that because we're counting days now before this to the floor of the National Assembly and they will vote. And it's back to exactly what you're saying. Look, who's there now to vote on this? Think about it, right? So right now, it's only 13 women at the lower house, all right? And then only, 8 women at the upper house. So in total, 21 women out of 469 are going to vote. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
Are the ones vote on this particular bill, whether we should have extra seats for women. And really, this is the implication of already having, you know, a sort of skewed system that is obviously male dominated. Because, I mean, but if this goes to the house, and obviously votes is the nays have it, it will be devastating, right? So I think why this is important is we need to know that this is an urgent issue. It cannot wait, you know, and that I really appreciate.
The nightmare we must wake up from.
Exactly. That's what I appreciate that you're bringing to us. The fact that, look, it is time for you to do something. So I think my next question is for people who have joined, you know, you can see the comments and obviously people who will catch this later. What can we begin to do? What can we do? Right? So for even women aspiring, I don't know, you know, so obviously women, to your point earlier, have run with men before. You know, one of the things this could do potentially, obviously, is it does push women, because to your point, inter-party is one of the major barriers, right? But no choice but to actually field women for those positions, right? Whether they after them, and these women have been there. We do not lack competence or capacity when it comes to women in, but they just giving the opportunity. So for those who are watching and for those who watch this later, what can they do? So regardless of what category you find yourself, like you said in your intro, you know, very, very nicely, we're all aspiring for something. We're all aspirants. So what? Do you need some water? Do you need some time to get water? That's all right. Adaora, do you hear me?
Okay, so what can we do? That's what I hear loud and clear. Yeah. We're already doing something.
While we wait for Adaora, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or any comments. We want this to be a two-way conversation. So if there's any, you know, comments or questions that you have, please feel free to put it in the comment section. And yeah, I mean, if it's a question, we'll make sure we ask Adaora. If there's something you're not sure about, okay, we've lost Adaora, but I'm sure she'll join. She'll join back. So if there's something you're not sure about, if there's something you want clarity on, as you can see, Adaora has brought the fire this evening, you know, so I want to ensure that you get all the information, that you're armed with what you need to actually go out there and make the case for additional.
All right.
Welcome back, Adaora. Yes, you were
okay,
about to
so yeah, so what can we do? We're already doing something, but then the question is, how widely are we reaching with what we are doing? Honestly, I can say two things come to me top of the heart. Who are we engaging and who are they engaging? Okay, so it's it's an organogram, all right? And honestly, I believe that the conversation now is to know how we can, like I always tell you, Abosede, politics is local. Whatever you do, the literacy of our politics starts from the common woman in the community and how she's able to access voice and representation. It is very, very important. The Conference of Speakers, State Assembly, they had a few weeks ago was clear on that. And he said, we will support this bill and we would make sure that when it does come to the State Assembly, we will be for this bill. But then it is now up to the representatives to go back home to also increase awareness on what this bill hopes to do. Because whether we like it or not, the traditional nomenclature and the religious nomenclature also has a way of stereotypically pulling down great policies like this because of ignorance. So how are we doing what we're doing? Who are we engaging and who are they engaging? So it is very important to spread the advocacy and take it from the bottom to the top approach. We have done the first inroad, first, second, and third reading and all of that, gone to the Constitution Review Amendment Committee. Now we're waiting for hearing at the plenary. It's going to be a heated argument. Trust me, it's not going to be a walk in the park. But by the time it is passed, because I know it will be passed, the truth of the matter is the fact that we then have to also look at the issue about a very non-gender or lacking gender, gender sensitive Senate. I once said that the 9th Senate is the most insensitive, anti-gender Senate we've ever had. I mean, quote me, because for a Senate to step down the Gender Equal Opportunities Bill, it means that it's a Senate that is telling you that yes to domestic violence, yes to non-women's participation in politics, yes to no education to young girls, yes, it's yes to all the things that limit women, because that's what the bill was hoping to do. Is yes to the vices and the issues that torment widows, the practices that limit women. Yes to all of them. Let's keep doing it. Because when you step down that bill, that's what it means. And I do not know if they have unveiled the consequences of stepping down that bill. Now we have the extra seat bill. Let's just assume they have taken, a rain check and then sat down and said, you know what, for foresight's sake and for the posterity of our office, let's even leave a legacy bill, okay? And let's look at more women's inclusion. We are not even coming to say, give us your seats or we are taking your seat. However, the women still can run for those seats if they choose to. But we are saying, let's leave a certain number of seats for women. Let's see how we can increase their numbers so that we can have more women voices. Because it may be that we are very stoic as men and our conversations are not really sensitive. And that there is a nurturing that comes with the presence of women. So sometimes I wonder what the State Assembly that has no female, I wonder how it feels for them. They all come in and just sit down and all those their baritones and, it's very funny. How do they converge? There's no lightness of heart. There's no mediation spirit. It could be very, 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 very stoic. And so we're saying that what we must do is to become ambassadors of women's participation, not just in politics, but across all the sectors. Because we have the next generation of girls to worry about. I want my daughter to grow up and not be fighting these wars that I'm fighting, to see a space in Nigeria where she can aspire to be anything without the limiting factors, such as, gender bias and having to break down the glass ceilings. These things are things that can only come to pass if we look at a law that increases women's participation. And honestly, Abosede, like I always say, you saw the work by the civil society today on the heat they put on the president to pass the Electoral Amendment Bill. I want women to be agitated like that. The civil society must reconstruct what it means to mobilize for a cause, because every issue, as far as it is not conclusive or conclusively engaging democratically, is an issue of governance for all civil society members, whether it is female-led or male-led. The issue of gender bias and lack of women's participation is a national emergency. It's not a gender emergency. So we are saying that every civil society member, whether it is in the media, whether it is in the Nigerian Union of Journalists, whatever civil society space that you occupy, it is a national emergency, because you cannot have half your population disenfranchised based on sentiments, based on stereotypes that you know that across the world, people have begun to break down the blocks. Now, last year, World Trade Organization and several other organizations said, well, it might take the world to aspire to end gender inequality, in the next 80 years. This year, they increased it to 100 years. So now you can see you can see where the light at the tunnel is. In fact, the tunnel is so long. And what we're saying is, let's start to spread the light one step at a time. And the only way we can begin to do that is to start from our own parliament. So, we cannot be like, look at Somalia. Somalia is still struggling. They don't even have any female in their parliament, only 2 in the whole of their parliament, whether it's in the lower house or in the upper house. And you look at a country like Ethiopia, where you have the first female president. And that's a country that is in Africa. You look at Tanzania. You looking at countries that are breaking the barriers. And here we are looking at declarations, and 1 or 2 females have come out and people think it's a joke, because our nomenclature is stereotypically patriarchal. We need to deconstruct that mystification. It's like we need to demystify it. And the way we can do it is by, first of all, having more women voices at the parliament. And the way we can encourage this bill is to be deliberate about our advocacy. We need to be deliberate. In your family space, how are you explaining it to your young teenagers, your children who are so open to social media? How are you discussing with your spouse, your friends at work? How are you advocating and getting people to be more aware of what it takes for a woman's voice to be heard? And how are you also making it seem and make them understand that it's also human right and it's not about being female? So if we cannot have, an equal opportunity space that thrives in the parliament, we cannot have equal opportunity anywhere in our development in Nigeria, because that is the back room of our democracy. The parliament is the engine room. That is the back room. So unless we do that, we will still, like I said, keep recycling these conversations. And finally, women must harmonize. We must harmonize. We all have our different conversations and what we ought and what we want to do. Whether you are in the domestic violence space, whether you are in the mining space, whether you are in the medical space, this bill is your bill. Because when it is passed, everything that it concerns your sector will be protected, and there will be active participation in bringing to the light the challenges in those fields, and you will have more voices to vote on them. So we must harmonize. Let's not say, oh, it's an Abosede bill, oh, it's an Adaora's bill, oh, it's a person's bill. It is not a political bill. It is a social impact bill. And so we must think of it like that. So we need to step up and step down the advocacy from the bottom to the top. We've done the central field conversation. Take it back to the community, take it back to the roots. Let your ward chairman know, let your woman leader know, let your structure know, let your campaign director know, let your church clergyman know, let your pastor know, let your imam know. Step it down. Because when they own the document with you, you are closer to the goal. And finally, I also want to say we need to start deconstructing.
Adaora, do you hear me? Yes, I love that. Thank you for dropping that Iyabawa. She said it's not a political bill, it's a social impact bill. And I think this is a fantastic point that Adaora is making, because one of the things that happens is, we do this whole women in private sector, women in public sector, women in civil society. But as Adaora has said, this is one of those bills that if it passes and you have more women in parliament than if you were women in mining association and you wanted to bring an agenda, to become a law and a policy, you have the army there with you waiting to help you facilitate and push the bill. So I think it's really, really important that, we have this conversation about the fact that, look, this is not a bill that, because, Bosse and Adaora are in the social space, then they are the ones that should be talking about it. This is a national bill. It's a national issue. It's not a gender bill. So, I think that really Adaora has just come here to light us up, and let us know in the chat what you have learned while we wait for Adaora to come back on. We know how network is, but I'm sure she'll join us back as we start to round up. It has been a very, very, very firecracking conversation. Thanks to everyone who has joined us. This is the second in a 5-part series, so make sure you look out for tomorrow's session, Thursday's session, and Friday's session as well. The whole idea is to get you to be equipped with all the information and all the facts that you need to go and advocate for the passage of the extra seats bill. As you have already heard, it does hold a huge potential to transform all our lives, from the policies, the legislation, and everything that the National Assembly does to ensure that, we have the right, more inclusive laws and policies, and of course, allocation of resources, as we learned yesterday. So this is not a bill that only people in civil society should be speaking about, but it's a bill that concerns you, your children, your family, your parents, and everyone. And that's why we're having this conversation over the week in a 5-part series. This is day 2, and Adaora has been sharing with us what this bill means for us and what we can do. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. And if you are just joining us, welcome. We're talking about the extra seats bill, which is currently awaiting. So this is part of the constitutional amendment. So this is a bill for the act to have additional seats for women in the state assemblies and in the National Assembly, so House of Representatives and at the Senate. And as we've been talking from yesterday, the bill really presents a time in the history of this country where we can increase women's political representation from 4.1%, which is where we are, all the way to 19% in one instance if this bill passes. So it's a huge, huge opportunity and really a historic moment. And that's why we must not let it pass us by. We must do everything that we can, at our individual level, at our, societal level, organizational level, to ensure that this bill passes. I don't see Adaora yet, but if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. If you have any comments, any areas of concern, anything you're not sure about, please put it in the chat. And I would encourage everyone who has not watched yesterday's session to watch it, because Nkiru Zodi from PLAC really laid a solid foundation in helping us to understand, why this bill is the most important thing that we need at this time in the history of this country. And I'm hoping that Adaora can join us back, because my next question for her was going to be, what is the outlook on 2023? What does it look like? What should we, anticipate, especially if this bill passes? Honestly speaking, I'm one of those people who, I don't know what I will do yet. But even at the retreat 2 weeks ago, when the proposal for the bill was adopted to be part of the recommendations that go forward, by the Constitutional Amendment Review Committee. I mean, I celebrated like the bill had been passed. So it just holds such, potential for transformational change. And I'm also a mother of two young daughters, right, who are 6 and 4 years old. And as Adaora said, I do not want my girls to be fighting these fights, right? Our mothers have said it. Our grandmothers said they've been fighting. But I don't want to be telling that same story to my children. And I just think that another 4 years for this fight and for this advocacy is not necessary. We can move on to other things, like now ensuring that women, are actually getting into office and are able to deliver, to be effective in those positions. That's the kind of conversation we want to be having in 2023. So I don't see Adaora yet, but I'm sure she'll join us back. Yes, so, but if you're just joining us, welcome. Let us know if you have any comments, any thoughts, any questions. Yes, we have Adaora back now. So I'm going to bring her on. Adaora, welcome back. I was just giving a recap when you were not here. But welcome to everyone who's just joined us. We're talking extra seats bill for women.
Sorry, guys.
No worries at all. We know how it goes. Thank you for coming back. So we're beginning to wrap up now, right?
The network is anti-gender.
I'm men. There are too many men controlling on the back end.
I'm telling you.
So they can be more sensitive. But so as we wrap up, what's your outlook for 2023? What are the things that women should be preparing for? And as I said, this is with the hope that obviously this bill passes. That's definitely what we're looking forward to. So what is your outlook for 2023, the elections which are coming up? And bearing in mind that this is February, so we're literally a year out to the election.
Okay, first of all, I want to use this platform to call on the President, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, to please pass the Electoral Amendment Bill. It's an urgency for now. It is not a bill that you take your time to, consolidate. It is not a political solution. It is a democratic solution. So all of this, incursions of, they are talking backstage, political party members are negotiating. It is about governors. It's not about governors. It is so sad that we can see that document that can change the lives of millions of Nigerians, that can change the course of our election, that can redirect the course and the history of our election and participation of both women and young women and even the youth, and also give right to the vote of the Nigerian voter. And, we are begging. It is absolutely horrific. I am livid that we are begging, we are asking nicely our president, our number one father, the landlord of Nigeria, to say to him, please, we are begging you to do the right thing. It is so uncomfortable for me as a citizen. And in the number of, look at the number of days it has taken for us to come to this point where pressure groups are being deliberate to come out to say, no, pass the bill now. So I am first of all asking Mr. President to please pass the bill. Because when you pass that bill, INEC prepares on time. And then campaigns start on time. And then you have the right to say we can have at least a free and fair election because we will have electronic transmission. And then there will be non-political INEC staff or ad hoc members as election managers. Nobody can announce results under duress. We are asking Mr. President that this bill is like a choke. It's a choker in our neck right now as a country. We are not saying he doesn't have a right to take his time to take his decision, but we are saying we are out of time. Because If he wants to leave a legacy, this is the time to do it. And so if we do have that electoral amendment bill, honestly, it's a step forward in the right direction. Not just as participants of democracy, but as women, because several issues that border on election violence will also be challenged and taken care of within that bill. Secondly, women should start on time. I see a lot of women declaring without political parties, and they say, oh, they are still consulting. Now, the danger of that is that even as you're consulting, there are people who are already in those political parties, who are men, whom the structure would actually choose because they have been in the system and have lobbied within the rankings of the political party. The women must understand that the ability to politic actively and effectively starts from the structure of the political party engagement. You must become deliberate about the political party engagement, because you understand that without the political parties, you will not even have the access to nomination forms. You will not emerge as a candidate. So you must begin that conversation now. I ran under Action Alliance in 2019. It was one of the smallest parties. It was a baby party in the state, but we became the party to beat because we were ready and preparing. And by the time the APC candidate, who thought he was marginalized within the construct of his party, moved to the party, because the party of the day, the incumbent governor, was under that APC party, by the time the candidate moved to AA, all the other members of the State Assembly moved to Action Alliance. So we had all the members of the State Assembly running with the party ticket of Action Alliance to beat whoever the opposition was. So what am I saying? Be prepared. He will face the plans to fail. So you must understand that you must begin to understudy the political party you are running under. What is your party manifesto? These are things women need to begin to engage. And you must start to realize that politics in Nigeria, whether we like it or not, is expensive. Across the world it is, but Nigeria is very frightening. It is very important. So how are you planning financially? What is your preparation? Now, a lot of people think, oh, okay, if I win my party ticket, the party will now get funds for me and I'll become the favorite and they'll pump money. It's not lie. You must have your seed capital. And that's where you start from your consultations. That's where you start to build your team. That's where you go back home. That's where you start to restructure. So I need women to plan early, to get involved in the political party conversation. They should start looking at issues based on laws. What are the INEC rules? You should begin to interrogate past elections and why they failed. History will avail you experience to proceed. And it's very important for women to understand that you must have, even if you don't have practical experience, you can have research experience, historical experience. Talk to people, get an understanding of what was done before that didn't work for a candidate in that party and why your own must be different. And women must also understand that, oh, somebody said, but what if, like where I am, I'm the only female and I don't want to seem like the odd man out. Be the odd man out, but and be the right man odd out. What do I mean? If your voice is the only voice as a female, let it be loud enough. Because trust me, somewhere in their minds, there is something you're bringing to the table. And finally, we must support each other as women. We must galvanize around each other as women. I might not be running, you might be running a boss a day. I might have my networks, we might have conversations, we have a sit down, we say, what do you think you need right now? Where are the areas of challenges? We must begin to offer support. It could be, you know, it could be resources that are not necessarily financial. It could be technical support. So we must support each other. And it's quite unfortunate there are still conversations where you hear women saying that they are actually not supported by their own females, even within their own spaces. But that's a stereotype that has been leveraged on by the men to discredit women. And even if it happens in real time, we must demystify it. Because even the men have issues. They do. It's like somebody saying, let me give you an example. Somebody comes and says, oh, like, oh, wow, I was running for an election and this woman leader or this woman in my party didn't want me to run. She wanted her candidate and all of that. She wanted somebody who is loyal. Why don't you show her you can be loyal too? It is because if you have an experienced person in that space who can decide on your matter, and you do not have experience, and you know that just that one man out or one woman, in fact a woman odd out, can break or make your election, my dear, you stoop to conquer. You stoop to conquer. Because not everybody will want you on that seat. Not everybody will validate, whether female or male. You must earn their trust. You must earn their support. It is not cast in stone. Because once women hear, oh, women must support each other, you must earn my support. You must show me you're serious. I must see your capacity. I will not just vote you or support you based on the Y, on the X chromosomes. I won't do that. Just because you're female. Because my support is my social currency. And so I must put a value to it. So women should get that, oh, this idea of women supporting women, yes. But who am I supporting and why? Will she go there and shut the door against other women? Have I seen her trajectory raising other women up? Am I seeing her leading from the front and also influencing from what is she capable of? I must know why I'm putting my social currency on you. So you must earn it. And that's what women must understand. And that's what the men do. They look at around and they see and they shop for the ones that one, he's been loyal, bring him. And the women will say, oh, she's not supporting me. Or she says I'm feeling too big. I'm do this. I'm eyeing her in the meeting. She's wearing the color of my shirt. I didn't call her. I didn't buy their shebi for her sons. If you see the things that they quarrel about, I'm not hearing, oh, I don't think she has the experience. How do we teach her, help her? How do we expose her? I'm not hearing she doesn't have finance. How do we mobilize? But she has capacity. Women should value their social currency. So honestly, it's beyond the whole matter of, oh, women will support women, but we must understand that our social capital, especially when we bank on it, on an individual, that person takes a space. And so it must be somebody we can guarantee that must serve for that space. So, and that's what the men do. So we need to earn each other's support. I must see that you have to. It's just like I see you at Today. I've seen what you've done in Electoral. I'm seeing what you're doing in WILAN. And I am in a space and they say, oh, nominate somebody for United Nations, Secretary General. And they talk about issues about women. I say, I know about Today. Oh. I will nominate you because I understand your trajectory. And I know what your passion is. But, you cannot just pick up your phone in the middle of the night, 1 a.m. and say, hello. Honorable Adaora, good evening. I got your number from one Auntie Njideka. She said that you support women. You love women. You're a gender activist. And I want to run for office in Ngopala. I need your support. I need your support. Women should support each other. I will send you my account number later. We are doing fundraising. It's not going to work.
No, you will not kill me.
It does not work like that, Abosede. I don't know you. You've not even introduced yourself. I don't know what your trajectory is. And all of a sudden, because I'm a gender advocate, you wake up and then you call me. You must earn the support. Your support is your social currency, and women should understand that they need to build each other's trust to be able to earn their support. If a woman does not feel comfortable with you, find out what she loves. Engage her. And I think that's what we must do going forward. 2023, we must break the bias. International Women's Day focuses on that. We must break the bias in 2023 to see more women, more young women in that space. And it's even more critical because we are in a time when Nigeria's insecurity has a different dilution, you know, it has a different, it's diluted. So in a case like in the Southeast, what if your elections is on a Monday, or just let's say, and they say sit at home, nobody should come out. So we must begin to demystify and break down those barriers now, add our voices to help open up the spaces. And I also believe women go and join political parties and start to reconstruct. APC perhaps will have their convention. PDP has done theirs, and they did it wrongly, gave women only women leader seats, just 2 seats. And APC convention, we're hoping that they would learn and open up the spaces for women. Women can be legal advisors, they can be chairpersons of parties, they can be deputy chairpersons, they can be treasurers, they can be national publicity secretary, they can be anything. Because if we build from the political party structure, which I hope with this 35% affirmative action for political parties will open up the space. And women go and mobilize. Politics is local. Get your local women, talk to them, and start from where you are. Don't wait for elections to come. You can start. If you love to teach, you can take teaching exercises once in 3 months, once in 2 months. And re-engage. And finally, let your families understand that you are going to run for election, because you need a support system whether you like it or not. And your method of engagement should start from now to break down, especially in families where you have very strict, rigid, patriarchal settings. Whether you like it or not, you will find that. But we must begin to engage. We must begin to converse. Talk to your brothers, talk to your uncles, talk to your fathers, talk to your husbands. Somebody was asking me today, a young mentee, and said, well, Adaora, I don't know, can you do politics and get married and have a home? Because they say women in politics, their marriages don't last. I weak.
Oh no.
Or you hear where they're asking me, they say, but is it true that, why are they labeling women prostitutes as politics? I say, well, if they call you prostitutes, tell them you are pros of institution. Change the narrative. So whether those stereotypes will come, they will come. Whether they will do all of those conversations to weaken you, they will come. But you must position yourself to be able to educate those who are ignorant on the right gender identities. We must change how we refer to women in our spaces, in the media, how we have those conversations. When you say, it's a man's world, you affirm it. It's our world.
Our world.
When you say women are the weaker, we are not, we are the stronger sex, we birth. You don't call, even if you are in the domestic violence environment, you don't call somebody and say, oh, so we are now talking to a prostitute, a former prostitute who is now going, you re-traumatize the person.
Yes.
I'm talking to a vulnerable person. Change the gender identities. Those are the things that limit us as well. Because if we help to educate, we will reduce the stereotypes. So going forward, we must change our gender narratives and how we engage. Secondly, we must plan, because he who plans, fails to plan, plans to fail. And planning includes financial understanding, financial structuring. Number 3, go into the political structuring of your party and know why that party exists and what you can do for it. Number 4, you stoop to conquer. You're not stooping because you're not, I'm not saying bend your head, but I'm saying be ready to engage. If you don't used to greet people when you pass people before, start to greet them. Look at the things that open up the spaces for you. Like I went for a training today and the girls were forming for each other. I was like, oh, I'm Jane, I'm from Plateau State. This was, oh, I said, yeah, people are learning, they're learning work here. If you want to do politics, politics is about networking.
Absolutely.
So all this forming, you need to leave it at home, okay? And understand that nobody better pass the other here. Because when it comes to going to the polling units to campaign, you will campaign. And I said, finally, you must start from where you are. Engage. Don't wait till elections before you start to reach out. Start now. And that starts by telling people about the extra seat bill, talking to them about what the benefits are and how it will engage more women. That's even a campaign on its own.
Absolutely.
Honestly. So I am looking forward to more women engaging, coming out, the civil society being deliberate about gender issues and understanding that it is also about being democratic. Because when you do not have gender inclusion, we cannot have equity. Equity is fairness. So let's even build on that. The national conversations we have on democratic issues, you know, it excommunicates the conversation on gender and leaves it for women groups. It is not about women groups. We must unite in that front and engage properly. So that's what I would say.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness, Adaora, thank you so much for, just pouring this all out, educating us, and bringing it home in terms of how it affects us, giving us some practical tips. I'm just smiling for my team, who's going to tease out the lesson we've learned today, because they have been so much. So thank you so much for spending the last over an hour with us. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you for all the work that you do. Send our regards and our to Right Honorable Nkiruka Onyechere. We know that,
I will.
she has been leading, this
fantastic
journey.
Woman. Dogged.
Absolutely.
Resilient. You will pull her down, she'll stand up again.
But there's an army behind. And also, I joined voice to yours to call on the president to pass the Electoral Act. It's just the right thing to do. Like I said, I don't know, we shouldn't even be begging or asking, and we hope that the presidency hears us and really does what is the right thing, and hopefully sees it as an opportunity to leave a legacy for his administration. And to everyone who joined us and everyone who will watch the replay, thank you so much for engaging in this conversation. Go out there, speak to one person, to another person about the extra seats bill. We are on the precipice of history, and we can together transform this nation. Remember that today was the second part in our 5-part series happening every day this week. So look out for tomorrow's guest. It's going to be exciting as well. And we just look forward to continue engaging in this conversation. So Adaora, I want to thank you once again for your time, and we look forward to celebrating together soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, and have a lovely day. Thank you to everyone who joined in as well. Please join again tomorrow. I'll be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks. Take care. Have a good